Omatase shimashita. Thank you for waiting. Today's day 3 of the tofu and soy milk cooking challenge, Japanese style. If we have not met before, my name is Patrick, and welcome to our 3rd day of the tofu and cooking challenge. I have a few things in store for you today. So before we get started, just wanted to say hello to everybody who is watching right now. So I see Janet, I see Alice, I see Barbara. Good to see you guys. Hope you're having a good week. Happy hump day. I'm holding my immersion blender here because we're gonna make cookies. I guess first thing before we get started, I wanted to recap what we made yesterday. So this is the asparagus okara miso zuke that we made. And this is the final dish. So we let it marinate overnight, and all of the umami and the flavor has nicely penetrated into the asparagus. Like I mentioned, you can use green beans or other green vegetables like maybe broccoli if you have a lot of leftover like I do. There's a lot of the marinade left over. I'll show you what this looks like. I think you can see it in the camera, picture in picture. So that's that. I don't know if you guys had any questions, but it's very easy to make and it tastes delicious, very healthy. If you remember, all we used was miso, okara, and mirin, and that was it. So for our main course tonight, we were going to do yudoufu, which is it's a nabe. You can consider it like a nabe mono. Traditionally, it's done like at the table, so you wouldn't do it on the stove and then take it to the table. I think most households have like the electric pot where they would do it at the table, and then you just dip your tofu in the broth, or you take out your tofu and you season it with some sauces. So I have here homemade ponzu with lemon. This is my homemade ponzu jar. I put a little bit of konbu, which is dried kelp, and lemon, as well as katsuobushi flakes. So I served a little bit of that in this bowl right here. And then we're going to make another type of sauce. I have a 1/4 cup of soy sauce here, just regular soy sauce, show you, and some katsuobushi flakes. And then we're going to add a couple tablespoons of mirin. And that's going to be a different soy sauce based sauce, or I guess you could call it tare, that we're going to season the tofu with. Right here I have some konbu. I don't know if I told you. I have konbu here that I've soaked for about 30 minutes. So it's a nice, I think it's about 3 by 6 inches. So here's how it looks after it's nicely expanded in size. And this is in 4 cups of water. So when you're doing konbu stock, the standard ratio is 10 grams to 1,000 mils, which is about this size of a piece of konbu in 4 cups of water. So it's been soaking in there for about 30 minutes. I'm going to turn on the heat on low. And then as soon as the bubbles start to form around the edges of the konbu, that's when you know you can turn off the heat, and then you can take out the konbu, because if you cook it too long, it's going to get slimy. It's going to make the broth slimy, and it also ruins the flavor. It's going to release all those bitter compounds, which you don't want. So I have my tofu here. I made another batch yesterday night. So this is my homemade tofu with the lower soybeans. We're going to go ahead and put that in here and cook it with the konbu so that it's heated through. And one tip, I was watching this Japanese TV show one time about yudoufu, and one tip that they had mentioned when you're adding your tofu blocks to hot broth is to turn down the heat so that it's not boiling, because if you have really soft tofu, like kinogoshi tofu, there's the potential for it to break apart because it's very delicate because of the heat difference from inside the tofu, the interior of the tofu piece, and the broth that it's in is very great. So that burst of heat might break it apart. So when you're adding very delicate tofu to your broth, turn down the heat so that it's not so hot, and then you can turn it up later so that it's heated through. So key tip there. And I also have another block of tofu for leftovers. And this is like one of the simplest tofu dishes that you can make. They serve it all over Kyoto in the tofu specialty restaurants. And It's one of my favorite foods. It's very simple. So my oven beeped. I was preheating it to 350 degrees for the cookies. So we're going to be making okara cookies with matcha today. That's what all this other stuff is. And yeah, so hello to whoever it is that just joined. You're the 5th person. Welcome to the party. We're just getting started. So this pot's going to be on medium heat. I'm going to cover it, and then I'm going to watch the clock. So in 15 minutes, or not 15 minutes, yeah, about 15 minutes from now, we're going to turn off the heat and just let it simmer so it doesn't need to cook. And then we can go ahead and serve the tofu with the ponzu sauce. I also grated some fresh ginger, and we're making a separate soy sauce with mirin and katsuobushi flakes. So those are 2 ways that you can enjoy your yudoufu. The other ways that you can enjoy the yudoufu is with, you can use like yuzu kosho, which is a spicy yuzu citrus paste with chili. You can also make like a miso garlic type of paste or sauce. You can also use just salt, maybe with a little bit of sesame seeds ground. You can also do wasabi. You can make like a wasabi shoyu sauce or wasabi soy sauce. I don't know, have you guys had yudoufu before? Let me know if you guys have had it. I think you need to go, if you're in Japan, you need to go to like a tofu specialty restaurant, but it's one of the easiest things that you can make at home because all you really need is konbu or dried kelp, water, and tofu. So hopefully you guys will give this a try. It's super healthy and it's very comforting in the winter time. So, okay, enough talking. Let's go ahead and make our cookie, our matcha cookie. So here I have a stick of butter that I've melted. So this is 1 stick of butter. And I have about 1/3 of a cup of sugar, just white sugar. I'm gonna go ahead and put this all, get this all blended together. Have you guys had matcha cookies before? They're one of my favorites. I enjoy eating matcha cookies with white chocolate. I think white chocolate and matcha are like one of the best combos ever. And also nuts. So today we're actually gonna add some walnuts. I wanted to put a different spin on these cookies. Sometimes I just make these plain. So we added the sugar and then the butter. So we're gonna go ahead and mix this together until it's a little bit creamed. Just gonna use my whisk. And then we're gonna add in the egg yolk. So I have 1 egg yolk, a cup of light flour. So this is hakurikiko. This is Japanese flour. You can buy this online if you can't find it at your local grocery. Or alternatively, you can just use cake flour. This is similar, very similar to cake flour. And if you don't have cake flour, you can actually make that from scratch at home, which is very easy to do. I usually just use all-purpose flour, take out 2 tablespoons of all-purpose flour from 1 cup, and then substitute that with 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. And that gives you cake flour, homemade cake flour. So no need to go buy it, just use your all-purpose flour and then a little bit of cornstarch, and that's your cake flour. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get this started. All right, so let's go ahead and put the egg yolk in here. And then we can add in the okara, and then the flour, and then the matcha powder. So this is 1 tablespoon of matcha powder and about a 1/2 cup of okara. I'm gonna actually make some space here. So, if you've never baked with okara before, it has a very neutral flavor, as long as you cook it properly. I've never really noticed the flavor of okara when I bake with it. So if you're concerned there that you might end up with some baked goods that taste like soybeans, that's not the case at all. So don't worry about that. All right. And then we're just gonna, whisk until it's incorporated. You don't need to over whisk. There's a tablespoon of matcha powder, and then get that incorporated in there. And then let me make some space for the flour. Sometimes I like to put my put sugar on cookies. So like you can use powdered sugar if you want to go for that powdered look, or you can use carbonado sugar, which are those fat sugar crystals. Either way, they're nice and sweet. Sweet in a good way, not overly sweet. I feel like American sweets are always too sweet. Whenever I make American dessert recipes, sometimes I cut the sugar down in half. I don't know about you guys. Do you guys ever cut back on the sugar for American dessert recipes? Okay, so this is just about done. I have a cookie sheet here topped with some parchment paper. That's what we're going to put our cookies on. And then we're going to bake everything for about 15 minutes. And then that should be just about when we're done with our yudoufu. So in case you're wondering why I'm making such a small batch, it's because these cookies are really rich. As you can see, I put in one stick of butter. So I don't really enjoy eating really rich cookies all the time. So that's why I'm making a small batch. Okay, so that's done. Just gonna make sure that it's all incorporated. Using my spatula, I always get these cookie dough pieces off. Do you eat cookie dough? I like eating cookie dough, even though it has raw egg. Living life on the edge. I don't know if my chat is working because I'm not seeing any comments, but let me know what you guys think. All right, so there's that. And if you don't have a cookie cutter, one thing that you can do to get your cookies in a nice round shape is to use some plastic wrap and roll it into a cylinder, like a cylinder shape, and then just cut with a knife. Once it's rolled in that circular shape, you just cut with a knife, and then that'll give you perfect round cookies. All right. So I'm going to move my little baking sheet over here and see what we're doing. Oh yeah, I forgot to put in the cabbage. I didn't get a chance to go to the market today, so we're just going to use some cabbage for the vegetables. And that'll help to make our yudoufu a little bit more nutritious. And go ahead and put these cookies on here. So usually I do like a couple tablespoon size. I like my cookies small. Like mindful eating with cookies. Like if you start small, you can enjoy them more because you eat them up so quickly, versus if you have a large cookie, right? I feel like that last bite of that huge cookie is not as enjoyable as the first one. But that's just me. Janet says she only eats shortbread dough. Shortbread sounds delicious. Shortbread and vanilla ice cream. It's one of my favorites. All right. So one thing I wanted to mention for you guys that are joining today, thank you for joining, by the way. I know some of you have been with me each day of this week, so I appreciate that. And also for my last challenge, I know some of you are return visitors, so thanks for tuning in. Hopefully you find this information helpful or inspirational. I did want to let you know that I'm going to be holding a giveaway and a giveaway is going to be sponsored by Laura Soybeans and I. So Laura Soybeans is who I got my soybeans from, and that's what I use to make all of my soy products and the tofu. We're going to give away one bag of soybeans. So whoever it is that decides to participate in the tofu soy challenge in the next week or so will have a chance to win a nice fat bag of soybeans. You want to see what that looks like? Here's my bag. So this will last you quite a long time. I got this back in May and I've used it almost every week. So to give you an idea, that is a lot of soybeans. So unless you have a big family or you eat a lot of soy milk, it's going to last you a long time. Hello, Yoriko. Good to have you. So we're finishing up our okara matcha cookies. And we're going to top some of these with some walnuts. I've toasted them already. Sometimes I like to put white chocolate chips. White chocolate chips and matcha are my favorite combination. And by the way, if you're going to be cooking with matcha, you don't need to use high-grade ceremonial matcha because those little cans are super expensive. You can just use the food grade. Usually it says like culinary or something like it's for food. And it's much cheaper. And also make sure that it's from Japan and that there's nothing in it except for matcha. I've seen some matcha teas that have stuff added to it. Not something that I'd recommend using. I don't know about the flavor. Wouldn't be able to comment on that because I don't use it. All right. So these are going to be about 1.5 inches thick, or wide, I mean, and about 1/4 inch thick, about the size for these. And then we're going to bake them for about 15 minutes. You want to watch your oven so that they don't overbake. I've been preheating my oven for about 30 minutes now, so it's going to be nice and warm. Okay. All right, guys. Our dessert is done. Just about. Now we just have to bake it. If you can't find matcha powder, a good alternative is hojicha powder, or you can just use loose green tea leaves and then try to process it in your food processor so it's like a powder. It's going to be a little bit more grainy though because matcha is a very fine powder. But those are two alternatives that you can try using if you don't have access to matcha powder. And it is available online, like on Amazon, they sell it. So that's another place if you have Amazon near where you live. And another way that I like to eat my matcha cookies is with vanilla ice cream. It's another good way. All right, so now we're gonna just top these with a little bit of walnuts. I'll just do half of these with walnuts. And I already toasted these, but you don't have to. I usually eat this with my pancakes and waffles for breakfast. That's why I have some. I'll just do half. They spread a little bit. So Alice is asking, well, the cookies spread. They do spread a little bit, so you don't want to put them too close together or to the edge, because we did use a lot of butter, so 1 stick of butter, but they don't spread too crazy. I think the okara, the protein in the okara helps to keep it together. Okay, so these are ready to go in the oven. I'm gonna put them in the middle rack, and then we'll put the timer for 15 minutes. And then I don't know about you guys, but I always use parchment because it's super easy to clean up. And it also allows the heat to go through from the metal baking sheet. Alternatively, you can use like a silpat, which is like the silicone baking mat. I don't know if you've seen those before. But that's like a reusable version if you want something that's more environmentally, what do you call it? Environmentally, I'm having a brain fart. Environmentally, what's the term? It's been a long day for me. That's why I can't think and talk. So here's the silpat that I was talking about. So you can also use this instead of parchment. It also makes cleaning up quite easy. And this has like a wire interior, so it gets very hot and it'll give you a nice crust. I use this for baking bread and cookies. So yeah, environmentally friendly, that's the word. Thank you, Barbara. It's been a long day. Okay, so this is actually boiling, which we didn't want. I'm going to take out the konbu. I think the konbu is done. And we'll just put that in here. This konbu you can reuse to make tsukudani, which is the seasoned soy. It's the konbu that's been seasoned with like mirin, sake, and shoyu or soy sauce. So don't throw it away. You can still use it. And at this point, you can just go ahead and serve yourself. So the yudoufu is ready. Let me show you what it looks like. It's basically just tofu and cabbage and konbu broth. But since it's homemade tofu, it tastes amazing. There's no comparison to homemade tofu. And then you can serve it with some of the sauces like I mentioned, so the homemade ponzu, or you can use store-bought ponzu if you don't want to make it. And this other shoyu sauce that we're making with katsuobushi flakes. So this is a 1/4 cup of regular soy sauce. And we're going to just bring it to a boil along with 2 tablespoons of mirin and then about 2 to 3 tablespoons of katsuobushi flakes. And that helps to give it a different flavor than just regular soy sauce and mirin. So definitely recommend that you give it a try. It's definitely more interesting than straight soy sauce, in my opinion. And as soon as you notice that it's boiling, we'll drop in the katsuobushi flakes, just a small handful. And it starts to boil really quickly because it's a small amount of liquid and it's a stainless steel pan or pot. Have you guys made anything like this before? And Alice says that she's anxious to try my okara matcha cookie recipe. Yes, it's a good one. And matcha shortbread is another good one too. All right, see, so the soy sauce is already boiling right away. So I'm just going to turn off the heat and then we'll put in a little handful of katsuobushi flakes. Just like a 1/4 cup. And then just make sure that it's all mixed in. And this helps to add a lot of flavor. It gives it a unique katsuobushi-like flavor, but it's not too strong because the soy sauce is strong on its own. So it's a good match. They synergize very well with each other. So yeah. So turn off the heat there, and then we can go ahead and put it back into the same container and let it cool. You can also try this for other things, just like fish or meat, for example. Here's the sauce. It has just a little bit of a texture thanks to the katsuobushi flakes. And then I have my ponzu here. And I have more tofu in my tofu press. So I don't know if I talked to you guys about this yet, but tofu, when you buy it at the store, you know how it usually comes soaked in water. That's to help preserve it and also so that it transports without getting damaged. So it's like a cushion. And you always want to drain the tofu because it has excess water on the inside, which if you add it to something like the konbu dashi that we made, it's going to dilute it a little bit. And plus, removing the excess water helps to improve the flavor of the tofu itself. So highly recommended. There's many ways that you can remove excess water. You can boil it in water and then drain it, or you can do it in the microwave and then drain it or pat it dry. You can also just cut it into small pieces, and that helps to drain quicker. You can put a weight on it, which is kind of what this thing does. This is the Tofu Express. There's a little spring in here. And basically you just, let me show you what it does. So this spring is what pushes down on the tofu. The only thing that I don't like about this is that it doesn't have drainage holes. You have to manually dump it out like that. Just dump out the excess water every now and then. So let's go ahead and taste our tofu. I'm hungry. I don't know about you guys. We have 9 minutes left on the oven, and we're just about ready to eat some dinner. Do you guys have any questions so far? I'm making yudoufu. It's very easy to make. And they charge quite a lot in Japan. If you go to a yudoufu, or if you go to a tofu restaurant, you want yudoufu, it's not really cheap. So I'm just going to take a piece out and I'll dip it in my ponzu. And then you can top it with ginger. So I have some grated ginger here. And I was also going to chop some shiso, my arrow garden shiso. I sacrificed 2 leaves today because I wanted to eat it. Delicious. And then the broth, you can drink the broth because it's konbu dashi or konbu broth. And yeah, I think that's going to be just about it. We'll wait a few minutes for the cookies. And then I did want to let you know, so I linked the 3-day cooking challenge website page. I think it's in the comments section of this video. If you want all of the recipes that we made the past few days, I'm going to put all of them together in a PDF booklet. I'll send it to you, and we'll give you probably about a week. So by next Friday or next Sunday, I think that should give everybody enough time to give this tofu and soy milk challenge a try. We'll do the same thing as before. We'll use the Gleam app and then the hashtag to enter, and hopefully this will give you guys a little bit of experience in making tofu at home and or soy milk at home, or some of the products as well. And the last thing that I was going to mention was that I'm going to be opening the doors to my tofu online cooking program. Probably tomorrow, I'm going to host another live video on my Facebook page and within the Facebook Daidokoro Facebook group, the private group, where I'm going to talk about what this program entails. It's basically like a complimentary video course that goes along with my tofu ryori cookbook. So if you don't know, I have a tofu cookbook that I published a couple months ago. And this video course is going to include all of the videos for every recipe that's in that book, plus more. So we're going to have live cooking starting next year, as well as 2 live videos per month that are going to be added to this program for people who like to cook with tofu specifically. So that's going to be coming up tomorrow. I'm going to open the doors for enrollment. If you're interested in hearing more about that, make sure to tune in or get on my email list, and I'll send you a notification for when that's available. If you have any questions or comments, let me know. And yeah, the tofu cooking, you can do so much with tofu. We've made savory things, we made sweet things, we've used vegetables to eat tofu products and soy products. One of the most versatile ingredients. That's why I like it so much. Plus it's healthy and it tastes good. I don't know about you guys. You guys like tofu and soy as much as me? I'll be honest, I didn't like tofu and soy when I was a kid. I was very closed-minded when I was a kid growing up. I only liked like American food, like fast food, hamburgers. I think the only few Japanese foods that I liked was curry. Curry and maybe tonkatsu. So tonkatsu is the fried pork cutlet. And yeah, I don't think it was until I went to Japan that I really started to appreciate Japanese food. And that was when I lived there. So I studied at Waseda University in Tokyo for a summer. And that was when I really opened up my world to food and to Japanese cuisine, because I was able to eat real Japanese food that my mom didn't make. So there's a lot of Japanese food that my mom does make, and then there's a lot that she doesn't make. So it really opened up my world there when I was living there. So yeah, here I am today, sharing my love for Japanese food, showing you guys how to cook it. Hopefully you find it helpful. I'm just going to cut up this shiso for the yudoufu, and then I'm going to serve the yudoufu with some rice. And then I'll eat my asparagus, my delicious asparagus. And then I'll finish off tonight with some cookies. So here's the asparagus again. And yes, Janet says she loves it. Me too. Give you a high five through the video. Yoriko also says she loves tofu. Me too. High five. Tonkatsu is great. I'm making tofu hamburger. Really? Where did you get your tofu hamburger recipe? You should share it. Share your tofu hamburger recipe with us. I want to make tofu hamburger too. Agadashi tofu is one of Janet's favorites. She makes it at least once a week. Really? That is a lot of agadashi tofu. Are you deep frying it or are you doing it on the pan? I usually do it on the pan because a little bit less oil. And I also use olive oil to make it more healthy. But sometimes I use just vegetable oil if I want to indulge. But yeah, agadashi tofu is one of my favorites. What kind of sauce are you making to use it? Or what kind of sauce are you making for the agadashi tofu? Are you using mensuyu? Are you using soy sauce? Are you making a sauce from scratch? Oh, deep fried in a wok. All right, so you're eating the real thing. The real thing right there. So just a couple minutes left, so let me check on the cookies. Smells like butter and sugar and matcha, my favorite. I forgot one of my favorite things when I'm making cakes and cookies is blending the butter and the sugar together. Butter and sugar is like so addicting. I don't know about you guys. That's one of my favorite things about cooking and baking at home is you get to enjoy all the sensory experiences that come with it. Whereas at the restaurant, you're just sitting at the table. You don't know what's coming until it comes, but at home, you get to enjoy all the experiences and the aromas, and if you spill something, or if you make a mess, you get to enjoy that too, the cleanup. I guess that's the trade-off. So Alice says one of her fondest childhood memories was when she lived in Osaka, and the tofu man would come around in his cart. Tofu, tofu, tofu ikaga desu ka? And her mother would give her a bowl, and she'd run out to buy some fresh tofu. Hiyayako was her favorite. Hiyayako is one of my favorites too. You know, it's funny. Over Thanksgiving dinner, I was at my girlfriend's place. Her family's, her dad was telling me when he was in Japan back in the day, my girlfriend's also Japanese, they trained their dog to go to the tofu shop. So their little dog would carry like a bucket. They put money in the bucket, and then the dog would go run to the tofu shop, and then back, and the dog would come back with a little block of tofu. How awesome is that? So awesome. Too bad we don't have any tofu shops here, at least not where I live. I don't know about you guys. Okay, I think my cookies are just about done. I'll show you what they look like. So it's up to you if you want to get like a little bit of a brown crust on the bottom or on the sides. You can see that it's starting to develop. I don't like my matcha too brown, so I took it out a little bit early. But it smells like matcha, my favorite. So all you need for this is maybe a little bit of powdered sugar, maybe some vanilla ice cream, and these will be gone in no time. They're really good. So always want to put these on a wire rack to stop the baking. So just set one of these up here. And then I usually just slide off the parchment paper. And now my cookies are done. So, whew, it's been a long day. All right, guys, so appreciate you guys joining me again. Thank you so much for participating, and I hope that you get a chance to make some of these dishes, whether it's soy, okara, or tofu, and hopefully you guys will share whatever it is that you're creating. Yoriko, I want to see that recipe of yours. Same with you, Janet. I want to see that agadashi tofu recipe of yours. If you can share it, that'd be great. And yeah, it's going to be it for today. It's going to be a little bit of shorter live session, and I'll see you guys in my next video. Otsukare-sama. So thanks again for joining. See you later.